tattoo artists of Reddit. Who was your worst tattoo virgin? So she was technically never an actual client, but I had a teenage girl, about 16 years old, come in once. She wanted a tattoo of a rose on the side of her neck. Now I'm certainly not going to even entertain a neck tattoo for a teenager period. But she didn't even bother to bring a parent with her to sign for her, so it went from a certain no to an absolute never in a million years. She got pretty upset and made a scene in our front area, and I told her to leave. After a lot of arguing, she finally left, but not before making some idle threat. Other than sharing the story with my coworkers over beers later and having a laugh at her audacity, I think no more of it. Until the following week, when an incredibly angry middle-aged woman comes barging into the shop screaming how she is going to have us all shut down and sent to jail. Everybody in the shop was pretty confused, and after we got her to stop screaming at all of us, we finally got it out of her why she was so angry. Apparently her daughter had went out and got a neck tattoo without her knowledge. It was around then that I recognized the girl from the week before peeking in our front windows. It all clicked. She had found some sketchy artist in a kitchen to tattoo the rose on her neck that I said no to. I told the mother to call her daughter in, and her daughter pointed to me and told her mom I was the one who did it. The tattoo was terribly done, to say the least, so the mom definitely had several reasons to be so livid. She started getting upset again and yelling about how this was going to get me fired and sent to jail, etc. I let her yell until she had calmed down enough to listen. Then I explained to her how the week before I had told her daughter outright that I wouldn't give her a neck tattoo. Her daughter screamed that I was a liar, and mom started up with another round of yelling, this time about how I was calling her daughter a liar. It was around this time that I just decided to point to our CCTV camera in the front area until the mother noticed what I was doing and stopped. I told her if she would like to, she could review the footage of me denying her daughter, the temper tantrum, and then her daughter leaving the shop. We usually keep footage for a week or two and then delete it, so I knew it should still be on the computer. Her daughter started looking pretty nervous around this time, but she didn't say anything. Meanwhile, I find the footage from the day and mom watches the entire interaction that I described go down. Then, with the coldest look of anger, betrayal and disappointment, she turns to her daughter. She takes her outside of the shop quietly and then screams at her outside for basically everything that has just happened, and how humiliating it all has been. After a bit, the daughter comes in and gives me a very sarcastic apology and then leaves. Now at this time I was still willing to tattoo minors with parental consent, but I'd been having a lot of shitty dealings with them and occasionally their parents. I had been considering a no minors at all policy, but this experience solidified that in my mind. Aside from one or two exceptions, I haven't tattooed any minors for the last 13 years now. Had a customer that wanted a little watermelon slice on his thigh. Cool. 5-10 minutes, nice and easy for a first tattoo. Nope. On the third line I hear a weird little low-pitched moan. Looked up and his head flipped back and the rest of him followed. When he woke up on the floor to 3 guys trying to pull him back up, he said something along the lines of WTF, why are you touching me? That's gay. Been like 3-4 years since then and he still hasn't come back to get it finished. Mel. A friend who had never had a tattoo before wanted one on her ankle and was adamant about that. I told her several times that the ankle is a very not fun location, and asked her if maybe she'd prefer the shoulder instead. She insisted on the ankle. Okay then. The moment the needle touched her, she hollered, "You sure you want to keep going?" I asked. She said yes. That was the loudest appointment I ever had, but to her credit she made it through. This girl's first tattoo, and my first paying customer. I tattooed people for free during my apprenticeship. She wants a star outline on the side of her heel below the ankle. She's a bit nervous, so I allowed 2 of her friends to come in the room with us. I start the tattoo and immediately she jerks away super hard. I warn her not to do that and try to relax. We start again and she jerks her foot. The 2 lines I've done now look like shit and I'm already pissed. Freaking out inside, I get her two friends to help hold down her foot and she continues to jerk around and at one point kicks me right in the jaw. Needless to say, her tattoo looked like shit and I was crestfallen. I called my mentor after work crying that I ruined my first tattoo on a client and she kicked me in the face, to which he said, "Wait, what? Nah, fuck that. It's not your fault. I'll see you tomorrow at work." Been tattooing 13 years now and still love every minute. Got way crazier stories under my belt since that kick in the face. Oh wow, reading this thread is bringing up some repressed client memories. My worst one by far, though, was about 5 years ago when I was apprenticing in a college town. This girl came in with her boyfriend for a traditional butterfly above her elbow. I was still super new, so it took me way longer than it should have. Maybe 2 hours. I lay her down on her stomach with her arm bent at her side. This is relevant later. Anyway, we start tattooing and within maybe 10 minutes she starts getting a string of texts from her freshman friends, telling her they're essentially ousting her from their group and they don't want her to contact them again. Super mean stuff. Obviously she's upset. As she's relating all this to her BF, she starts crying, then full-on sobbing. I asked her if she wanted to stop, but she insisted on me continuing, and I felt too awkward to counter her. She continued to sob on and off for probably another hour, while I just kept plugging away at this dumb little tattoo. At this point she had cried so much that her tears had gathered where her arm was pressed against the massage table and had started to spill over into my lap, so I'm feeling uncomfortable as hell, and now also damp. Then, as I'm within 30 minutes or so of finishing, she begins whimpering, then moaning loudly. At one point she tells the BF this is more intense than anal and I wanted to die. As soon as I finished and checked her out, my coworkers, who had all been waiting on me to close, were like, "What the actual fuck was going on, and why did you keep going?" But in the moment, all I could think was to finish the tattoo ASAP. To her credit, she came back a year later, and told me she had been too embarrassed to come back but loved the butterfly and wanted another tattoo from me. Her second session was pleasant and without incident. Buckle up, this one might get a bit long. In around 99-2000, I had only been tattooing for about a year or so. I had a lady in her 40s come in for her first tattoo. A walk-in butterfly on her left shoulder blade. She was a server at a sketchy strip club in town, and was pretty haggard. She also had her 16-year-old son with her. We get about 20 minutes into what should be about a 45-minute tattoo, and she says she needs a break. Now I know better than to leave a client alone when they need a break, but I was pretty green, so I stepped out for a smoke. When I came back in, she was standing up, bent 90 degrees forward at the waist, with her face on my workstation. As I get closer, I see that she's standing in a puddle of her own urine, and is passed out standing up. She's leaning forward with enough weight on her face to keep her from falling to the floor. Her son is frozen in his chair and doesn't say a word. Fortunately, she's wearing a skirt, so she didn't get her clothes all soaked. I get her conscious again and she says she needs to go to the bathroom to clean up. During the approximately 20 minutes she's in the bathroom, I mopped my floor a couple times and got everything good to go if she was still feeling up to finishing. Again, now I just tell her to come back another day, but I was pretty new. I just wanted to finish, get paid, and get her the hell out. Anyway, after 20 minutes or so, she comes out of the bathroom and says, "Don't worry, I cleaned the bathroom." Fuck, what did she do to the bathroom that would require her to clean it? She says she wants to finish the tattoo, so she sits, and I start working again. About 5 minutes in, I notice something on the outside of her knee. I look again and see that it's a little chunk of shit, not on the front of the kneecap, but on the side. I'm thinking, how does that even happen? As I look away from the turd, I see her 16-year-old son just noticed it too. He looked at me, and then at the floor for the remainder of the tattoo. I didn't know if I should say anything about the poop, or just finish the tattoo, get her out of there, and proceed to drown myself in a bottle to try and kill the memory. I decide not to say anything, partially to save her kid more embarrassment. Anyway, I wrap it up, get paid, get her out of there, and proceed to the bathroom to see what she did to it. The bathroom had a urinal, and 2 separate stalls. There were circular shit smears over the entire floor, and shitty toilet paper in both toilets. Like she blew up right inside the door and got down on her knees in a desperate attempt to clean it up. That must have been how she got the turd on the knee. I'm still curious how it ended up on the outside of the knee. I'm still curious if she ever noticed it there, and I'm still amazed that I didn't quit tattooing right then and there. Not your usual tattoo virgin story, more of a rant on my behalf. But I've been tattooing for almost 8 years now. The worst experience I have had with a client was a lady whom my workmates and I would call the Hello Kitty lady, 30-something-year-old tattoo virgin. So essentially the design we were working on was Hello Kitty riding a pink dragon, half sleeve, shoulder to elbow. Now I specialize in Japanese tattoos, which for the initial consultation she expressed how much she loved my style of Japanese dragons. So here's me thinking, sick, I can smash this dragon out the park and just put a Hello Kitty on the dragon, easy peasy. Booked her in for a full 8 hours day. So we begin tattooing. We start talking about how much we both love art, and she's heavily praising the tattoos I do and my tattoo style. So, super friendly, and we're hitting it off. She's talking kinda loud, which I take it's because she's understandably nervous, meaning my workmates can easily hear her speaking as well. Fast forward to our 20 minutes lunch break. I finish eating and so I walk out to front reception where one of my workmates tells me, "Hey man, I was outside having a smoke with your client." Not too sure if she knew I was an artist as well, but she was real upset with how the tattoo's going. She says it isn't hurting as much, that you're not doing the tattoo properly because her skin's not red. Irritated, and she said there is no way I'm paying all that money for a tattoo that isn't done properly. Completely caught me off guard and went against everything we were talking about. So when we came back to tattooing, I made sure to be overly reassuring, letting her know exactly what I was doing and why I was using certain inks which she'd insist were too light of a shade of pink, but I knew this pink was going to heal exactly the way she wanted it. Anyways, we finish up and I get home, check my emails, and there are 2 huge paragraphs on how much of a shit job I've done and that I never did what she asked for. We both clearly agreed to the design beforehand. I do this with every one of my clients where I get them to check the design. I reply reassuring her that the tattoo will heal as planned, that the colors will settle, and that it is easily fixable. I put paw prints on Hello Kitty to show it was the underside of her paws and not just 2 little random clouds poking out, but she didn't want them. Even though they were in the original design she approved. No worries, I grailing them so they'd be super easy to fix. She replies with another long paragraph on how I should tattoo and listen to my client's wishes, which I don't reply to because at this point I know she is overreacting and it's her first tattoo. 2 weeks later she emails saying how much she loves her tattoo, it healed perfectly, the pink was the right shade, and that she wants to book in to finish it up. Edit, people are asking if she apologized or if I finished the tattoo, so I didn't end up finishing. I palmed her off to another artist. Basically told her I felt uncomfortable that I wasn't going to meet her expectations, purposely worded it that way. In reality I wanted nothing to do with her lol. I was wondering whether I was being a dick for doing so, but I even felt uncomfortable emailing her, so I did the right thing. She also never apologized, didn't even acknowledge her behavior. Since then I take even more precautions before booking in clients. Have to. I did piercings, but my friend was an artist at the shop we worked at. But a girl come in, no ink, no piercings. She wanted to get, no joke, daddy's girl as a tramp stamp. She was in tears moments into the tattoo, like hysterical shit. She suffered through altogether probably 25 minutes, and walked out with girl right above her waistline. 10/10 hilarious. The other was a guy. He had a few small tats on his arms. Nothing crazy. He was also one of the I watch UFC and wear it about, don't fuck with me types. He wanted a pretty large tribal chest piece, collarbone to collarbone. He was told that we recommended a couple of sessions. Them shits is going to hurt, and this is a lot of outline and a lot of shading. He insisted no, he could sit. He ended up fainting toward the end of his outline. I worked there for roughly a year after and he never came back to get it finished. A couple of years ago, I had a girl come in for what was supposed to be a simple little seahorse. It was only about 4 or 5 inches long. This was going to be her first tattoo, and she told me that she had a severe fear of blood, that she always passed out whenever she sees blood or even thinks she's going to see blood. After that, I should have never agreed to tattoo her, but she said that she wanted to do this so that she could get over her phobia. Well, the outline itself should have taken me about 20 minutes or so, but it took me well over an hour and a half to get through. This girl passed out about a dozen times, and after each time, I would have to revive her, get her some water, hold cold compresses to her forehead and back of the neck, elevate her feet and get her calmed down. And no, you can't just keep working on someone after they pass out, and I couldn't just leave her with a couple of random lines that would look helpful. I had to finish the outline. The worst part was that I had gotten what I think was food poisoning the night before, so I was just going to do this little tattoo and then go home and get some rest because I still felt awful. I didn't think I'd ever get that outline done. Edit. Wow, I really thought this comment of mine was going to just be lost amongst the comments and would, at best, receive a handful of upvotes. Thank you. Not the worst client, but just an unfortunate event. The apprentice at my shop who had only been tattooing for a little under a year was tattooing this girl's wrist recently. Her first tattoo, the word undefeated, gets the tattoo. It goes smoothly. She likes it. Walks to the lobby. Shows her dad. He likes it. Walks back to get bandaged up. Gets bandaged. They walk back to the counter as he's explaining aftercare. She blacks out. Falls back, hits her head on a giant painting hanging on the wall, an Ed Hardy original. The painting falls, glass breaks. He runs over, picks her up and is checking the back of her head. Realizes a giant piece of glass had punctured her shoulder. Trap. Imp comes. Tell her she needs stitches. They end up having to take her to the emergency room where she got 6 stitches. The next week the girl brought him a giant tub of cookies. She wasn't the worst, but it was an incredibly unfortunate experience for the both of them. His first time having someone pass out and her being defeated. Not the worst client, but just an unfortunate event. The apprentice at my shop who had only been tattooing for a little under a year was tattooing this girl's wrist recently. Her first tattoo, the word undefeated, gets the tattoo. It goes smoothly. She likes it. Walks to the lobby. Shows her dad. He likes it. Walks back to get bandaged up. Gets bandaged. They walk back to the counter as he's explaining aftercare. She blacks out. Falls back, hits her head on a giant painting hanging on the wall, an Ed Hardy original. The painting falls, glass breaks. He runs over, picks her up and is checking the back of her head. Realizes a giant piece of glass had punctured her shoulder. Trap. Imp comes. Tell her she needs stitches. They end up having to take her to the emergency room where she got 6 stitches. The next week the girl brought him a giant tub of cookies. She wasn't the worst, but it was an incredibly unfortunate experience for the both of them. His first time having someone pass out and her being defeated. Tattoo virgins can be any type of person. There are freshly 18-year-old kids. You're newly divorced from a controlling spouse and finally doing what they want. Adults. Folks who've left religions or jobs that forebode it, and I've seen my fair share of bucket list elderly with paper-thin skin but a heavy drive to get at least one before they go. With every first tattoo, you'll find out the client doesn't know much about getting a tattoo. Maybe they've done hours upon hours of research. There are those who walk in on a whim from the street. Frankly, the worst are those who've watched every season of Ink Master and have convinced themselves they know more than the artists in our studio with 100+ years of experience between us. I've genuinely had a person who's never touched a tattoo machine in their life give me advice about how to more effectively use my gun to tattoo. Relax, Brent. I've got this. Then of course the micromanager, and I don't like to make generalizations about people, but you have a tendency to have the same persona as the can I talk to you manager types I've encountered. Tammy wants an infinity sign / feather / butterfly mashup with the birth flower of every member of their extended family incorporated, their kids' daub in Roman numerals, in every color of the rainbow. and make it fit in a 2-space on their wrist facing them so they can read it because it's for them, or you're gonna have a 1-star review on Google faster than you can say. Perhaps we leave out the butterfly.